Hey y'all, welcome to Phases of the Womb. This is Sarah Mel. This week we'll be talking to Bridget, my college roommate from FIU, about her labor journey, her health and fitness journey, and how she incorporates all of her health and fitness into just her everyday lifestyle. So I hope y'all enjoy this today. All right.
Take your time. This is my free time.
All right. So first, I'm going to just have you introduce yourself, however you choose to introduce yourself.
Okay. All right. Well, my name is Bridget Keller. I live in Florida. Live in Tampa, Florida. I was living in New Orleans, but I know Miss Sarah here. We were roommates in college and kind of just stayed in touch. Man, small world just brings us all full circle.
Yeah.
But I played volleyball in college. Then I went on to become a strength and conditioning coach in college at the University of Southern Mississippi, and then I worked a little bit at Tulane. And then after having my daughter, I kind of transitioned into a more flexible avenue of my career to where I could do personal training with mostly women, but then I also worked with athletes, and then I ran like different boot camps around the area, Metairie, New Orleans area. Mm-hmm. And now, since moving to Florida, I still train some private clients and I train my athletes, but I work at a gym called Kid Strong. It is like a milestone accelerator, they call it. Mm-hmm. Basically, it's like, I call it like baby CrossFit, which I like don't do CrossFit. That sounds so intense. I don't do CrossFit myself, but like, it's like, baby gym, but it's not free play. Everything's very structured. So like they have like little sleds made out of PVC pipes that they push and pull just to like learn those movement patterns. And then we like teach them how to squat, with their body weight. And then the older kids, they use a medicine ball. Then they do like different like ninja or gymnastic style movements, but everything is based upon, the foundational movement patterns of like squat, lunge, hinge, movements that you use in everyday life or can be applicable to sports. But around that, my favorite part about the program is like, we're teaching them how to move their body and they're getting exercise and everything's structured. But in between like rounds of their exercises, we do what's called brain slides. So like 1 month they learn like shapes or patterns, and another month they learn sign language. This month we're learning anatomy, but like very, very basic. Like the little babies were like, where are your feet? Go walk down, touch your feet, touch your belly button. And like my 4 and 5 year olds were like, okay, can you point to your biceps? Can you point to your abs? Like, the more common muscles. And then the older kids, they do more like complex questions. But we are always building upon that. So every month they learn something new, whether it's, their movements are new or the brain slides are new. Everything's changing, but they practice it for 4 weeks at a time. And that's been really a blessing to me, just to see how I can use the tools that I've learned over time and use them in a new way with a different population of kids that aren't just, it's not just the kids. It's like we're affecting the kids and the families.
I love that, though.
It's been really powerful to see like how much impact we're having on these families and changing lives every single time they come in.
Yeah, because I think too, instilling like movement and health and wellness and stuff like that at a young age definitely makes a difference in how you are as an adult. I feel like people our age and older didn't really start, I know people like, you did sports, I did sports, but like people who didn't do sports in like middle school and high school, I feel like people get to like their 20s and 30s and want to start working out, and it's hard. But when you instill that in the beginning, it just becomes a part of, your normal day. So I
Yeah,
respect that.
exactly.
That's an
And
amazing
even like,
job.
oh, it is. I love it so much. I lose my voice every single week from like coaching so many classes, but like it's well worth it. I love it. My daughter does it. She has another coach. Obviously, I want her to have like somebody else because she sees me all day long, but she loves it. She looks forward to it every single week. So I'm like, okay, this is something great. I love it.
That's beautiful. So since we're kind of already talking about like exercising and stuff, I am fully aware of how much you incorporate like health and wellness into your life. And I remember while you were pregnant, you're probably one of the only people I know that worked out pretty much the exact same way you did in the beginning to up until the very end. Because I remember you texting me when you're on the treadmill, like, I think my water broke. But I know a lot of people get afraid of, exercising while pregnant or like doing anything intense while pregnant. So how did you, being pregnant for the first time, how did you go about figuring out, what did you feel like was safe, or like did you go through that at all, or you just was kind of like, I've been doing this, so I'm gonna do it?
Well, actually, I mean, I'll preface this to say, like, I'm a big believer in we're all individuals. We're all not starting from the same place. Mm-hmm. And at that time, I would say, in probably one of the best shapes of my life. Mm-hmm. Nutritionally, not so much. Not so much. I was over caffeinated, and I was like, taking Adderall because I have ADD, mm-hmm. but I don't take it anymore. I've, since then realized that the damage it had done to my brain and my hormones. But anyways, I was, just not eating. Like, I was not eating where I should be, but I was very strong, mm-hmm. even though, I hadn't had any kids yet. So I was in great shape. I had 6-pack, all the things, but so like I knew going into it, I was like, oh, this is gonna be a breeze. Like, I'm just gonna, try and like listen to my body and stay where I am and, make adjustments as needed as I feel that I need to dial things back and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But my first trimester like hit me like a freaking Mack truck. Like, I was like, what in the hell? Like, when I tell you, I was like, I'm not going to be one of those moms. It doesn't work out. It like sleeps all the time and da-da-da. Like, I literally like felt like I had mono. I was just like so exhausted, so tired. Mm-hmm. Like, I went to the gym maybe like 3 times in my first trimester, even with Damien like coaching me, because I just physically, and mentally couldn't be there to like even think like what to do. Mm-hmm. I was like yawning. Like, I was like, this is so discouraging. Like, I can't do anything. I feel so weak. So I just listened to my body and I rested and I ate. And I think a lot of that played into the fact, like I said, that I was undernourished going into the pregnancy. So mm-hmm. I think my hormones were just already like very hypersensitive and out of whack. Mm-hmm. But that first trimester really allowed me to like tap into my body and restore my minerals, restore those calories that I needed to lower the stress that my body had been under for so long. And then my second trimester came, and like a lot of women, say like, oh, a light went on and I like got my energy back. So at that point I did, and I went back to the gym, and I had a lot of like pain in my feet and in my hips just from everything shifting. Mm-hmm. So I kind of listened to that, but I just kept doing what I normally did. And then I incorporated yoga into it, which when I went to one of the yoga classes, one of the girls in the classes came up to me and was like, you shouldn't really be doing a plank, and you shouldn't really be doing a back bridge or whatever the specific name for it in yoga is, because it's bad for your for the baby, and it's bad for your body.
I feel like people have so much misinformation, and that's wild.
Right, exactly. And I was like, but I feel fine. Like, it doesn't hurt me. And like, like, I do strength training outside of this, so I'm pretty sure I'm counterbalancing everything. She was like, well, I just want to let you know because, everybody tells you the horror stories. Like, I just want to let you know because it happened to me and it happened to somebody else that I knew that they had diastasis recti, from putting too much pressure on, and the baby hanging down and pulling on you. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll take that into consideration. But I will say that I didn't do and I still don't do it because I feel like a lot of people just aren't strong enough to do it properly without straining, is any kind of like a V-up or you see people doing like V-ups with their legs hanging off the bench. Yeah. Especially if you have longer legs, like you're obviously moving and pulling a lot more weight than somebody with short legs, to where you're putting yourself in a compromised position to, create that diastasis recti, or potentially somebody who's already stretched out in that area to tear something and have to have that surgery afterwards. So like those things I don't even really do now because I'm like, I can get so much more bang for my buck out of like a front squat or something that's on the ground to where I'm like holding it, or just, different exercises that are more compound movements. But aside from that, I mean, like I did power cleans just because I like to do those. And like, I hate running and I hate walking. Like walking was the hardest thing for me to do when I was pregnant. They're like, just walk, it's so good. And I'm like, it's so boring. I don't want to do this anymore. So like until my belly was in the way of the bar, I did that. That was my cardio. But yeah, I mean, like you don't have to do anything crazy in my opinion. Like if you're moving your body every day and you're sweating, you're finding a way to sweat every day. I think that's the major key that women should focus on versus like trying to hold on to some image or compare themselves to somebody else that like went into a pregnancy with those muscles already, or with that body fat already.
Yeah.
Like they should look at more of like, okay, I'm doing this for my health, or I'm doing this because maybe I went into the pregnancy and my body fat was already kind of, higher than it should be. So now I need to be more aware of what I'm eating and what I'm doing, how I can build muscle. Like I built muscle like crazy when I was pregnant because people don't realize like your growth hormone is through the roof. So that's a perfect time to create more muscle to support your body, not to look good, just so that way you're not aching and in pain after the fact as much. So yeah, I mean, that was a long answer, but
no, it's okay.
That's my answer. Like, it's more from like a perspective of where you're starting, what you need, and where you want to go after that.
Do you feel like you got a lot of, I would say, I mean, I don't know how else to word it, but like pushback because you worked out the way you worked out, being pregnant? Do you feel like people had a lot to say, like maybe you shouldn't be doing that? I mean, outside of the yoga, but like in the gym or like family members or friends?
I mean, I feel like people always have stuff to say when it comes to like, especially your first child, like, because, you don't know like anything. I felt like I was like totally a deer in the headlights with so many things. So I was like, well, this is what I know, like if anybody ever questioned me, like, this is what I've always done. I'm not like putting some just new, like huge stressor on my body because my body's used to this type of stress. Right. Now, if I was sitting on my butt all day and not working out, and then I got pregnant and I decided to be like this workout warrior and go do some crazy stuff, like,
no.
Then I would be like, okay, that, that doesn't really make sense because my body's not used to that. But I will say I was working maybe like, I don't know, 3 or 4 months out of my pregnancy at UFIT part-time, just training people. And like, when I first started to like pop, people were like, oh my gosh, you're like spotting people, or like you're picking up those dumbbells. Like, what are you doing? And I was like, I mean, I'm I still am like a healthy moving human. Like can move. I'm
Right.
not like a robot. I shouldn't just sit down. So I think like when I explained it from that perspective to people, like they're like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But like you said, there's so many myths out there, like that people are told, like, oh, if you wear heels, you get hemorrhoids, and like just insane stuff that makes no sense. Like they just live their life repeating those same things without ever understanding where it comes from. I'm guilty of that myself. You know, you don't really understand until you go through it and you do something wrong or you do something right. And you're like, oh, well, what was I afraid of this whole time?
Yeah. And I think that, I mean, that goes, I feel like with a lot of things surrounding pregnancy, you get a lot of people who say all these things that they mom told them, their grandmom told them, or whoever, and then they're afraid. And a lot of people just don't do anything. And I think what I've seen is the people with the most aches and pains and discomfort are the ones that don't do anything because they're afraid to do anything. You know, like even going for a walk. I even tell people, like, even if you do 5 minutes of prenatal yoga at your house off of YouTube, you gotta do something, because things are moving and growing and stretching, and you're gonna be uncomfortable if you're just sitting there. Like, so I always tell people, like, well, I was afraid to do X, Y, and Z. And I'll quickly pull up your Instagram, like, well, this how she was working out before, and this how she worked out until the very end. So I don't want to hear none of that.
Yeah. I mean, too, for me also, like, I struggled really bad with constipation during my pregnancy.
Yeah.
And that played a huge role in, like, my mood.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, if I would always tell people, like, Damien was teaching classes at a CrossFit gym there, so that's where I just worked out because it was convenient. And it helped me to, like, sweat more because it was outside.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, I would always tell people, like, I have to, like, do something every day, because if I don't, I feel worse and my digestion just goes even more downhill.
Right.
And, you know, for your mental health, like, exercise is an incredible tool for your mental health. And if you're holding all that fear and all that, you know, in a way, good and bad trauma that your body's going through when it's creating a new life inside of you and giving all that to another being, like, you're going through stuff that your body has to be able to energetically move through. So by moving your body and sweating, you're able to process those things.
Right.
Even if you're not, you know, talking about it. It's another way to process those heavy feelings and those heavy emotions, and, you know, help your digestion if that's something that you suffer with. Just helping your body overall. I feel like a lot of people capitalize on women and pregnant women's fear when it comes to things.
Yep.
And you learn, as a mother, like, I've grown to learn that more and more in so many different avenues that you deal with, that, like, fear is something that people capitalize on, and we don't realize it until it's hitting us in the face and we're like, dang, like, I should have, but I listened to somebody else versus listening to my body.
Yeah. When
we know our body the best.
Yep. That's exactly what it is. So I'm going to ask one more question about exercising, and then we'll move on to the other stuff. So, being that exercise was such a big part of your routine before and during pregnancy, how was the transition during your postpartum period? Like, how were you able to heal and not work out the same way? How did your workouts change? Did you feel like forced to, like, jump into, like, the snapback culture because your body does change? How was your postpartum experience in that aspect?
Well, going into the pregnancy, or, like, throughout the pregnancy before birth, I did a lot of, like, pelvic floor exercises, or I really focused on, like, my diaphragmatic breathing when I was doing, like, I did a lot of squats, and I did a lot of front squats, which help, you know, strengthen the core as well. Yeah. So I focused a lot on my breathing and everything that I was doing. because I knew that was a major thing that a lot of women struggle with as far as like postpartum.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing a lot of sitting, a lot of lying, a lot of positions that your body's in while breastfeeding that aren't good posture. They're, compromising posture that when you're not in those positions and you come out of it and you try to exercise, you'll experience a lot of low back injuries, or like I said, people with, in most severe cases, the diastasis recti, where they have like the separation of their abs and that like the belly that kind of comes forward hanging out because they didn't do that work on the back end. But that to say, even if you don't and you're learning as you go, that's something that I would definitely prioritize. And I did prioritize after the fact. I really eased into it. Like, I didn't know at the time that that's what I should be doing, is like resting more than anything for a long period of time, because a lot of people preach like, oh girl, like you gotta, you got abs, like you look so good, you can't even tell you're pregnant from behind. And then you have the baby and they're like, oh, like you're gonna come right back to it, you're gonna be in the gym next week, you're gonna have the baby on your hip coaching classes, and like that sounds all good and all, but like that's not healthy. Like, no. As much as I love the idea of that, in a way, like it's not healthy. And at the time I was like, yeah, definitely, like that's gonna be me, blah blah blah. As soon as I had her, she had colic, so she was never sleeping, but like something just in my body was like telling me like, you gotta rest, you gotta stay in the bed. And I had my mother-in-law and my mom and my mother-in-law's husband now in my house, which now I love them to death, but it was a horrible idea. It was just, my anxiety was like through the roof. So I was like, I'm just going to barricade myself in this room and call me when lunch is ready. I'm not coming out. So like, I didn't realize at the time, like I said, that that's what a woman should be doing. And that's the healthiest thing that she should be doing in a way. I mean, not barricading herself in a room, but like laying down and resting for at least 40 days after you give birth, before you do anything else. And you could do breathing exercises in the bed, pelvic floor, gentle stuff in the bed, but not just jumping back into the gym because your body isn't ready for that type of shock after birth. Even if you had a C-section, like sometimes those things happen and, in their emergencies and whatnot, but like, even if you had a C-section, you shouldn't be just jumping back. Or even if you had a short labor that wasn't traumatic and you had no tearing, you shouldn't be just jumping back. Yep. Because your body's not ready for it. And that's one thing that like I took my time to get back into it, but I wish I would have done more like hip stability and more stability strengthening exercises, because like I took my time to get back into it, but then once I did, I was like, okay, I'm going to like go back doing what I was doing. And then I was like, oh, my body is not ready for this. Yeah. I feel so weak and I'm getting so much more sore after the fact. So yeah, just taking your time, giving yourself, there's a really good book that's called The First 40 Days. And like nourishing recipes and like, background information, why it's so important to honor your body in those first 40 days after birth, and how women did it ancestrally, like way back in the day when everybody was birthing at home, and their time was like, they called it like their resting time, or their laying in time, where they didn't get out of the bed and they didn't do anything strenuous, like just going back to your roots of what women have always done. And there's a reason behind it.
I completely agree. Yeah. All right. So when you did find out you were pregnant, I know you chose to go the midwife route. What made you, being a first time, being that it was your first time pregnant, what made you decide you wanted to go with a midwife? Because I know a lot of people don't even know, especially a few years ago, I feel like it wasn't even as talked about then. So what made you decide, like, I think I want to go with a midwife?
Well, kind of like you said, like a lot of women like don't know. Here, 1 second. A lot of women don't know, and I didn't know, other than the fact like I knew I had my mindset that I wanted to try my best to do, no interventions, and I had my plan and whatnot of how I wanted my birth to go. And so I was like, I'm going to go the path of least resistance in my mind. And not to say that there aren't wonderful OBs out there that are very supportive.
Yeah.
But as a new mom, I'm like, okay, I know midwives are more inclined to go through with natural births, and they're more, supportive from what I've heard. So this is what I want to do. Let me ask Sarah if she knows anybody, because I don't know anybody. I don't know anybody in New Orleans. So yeah. And so when I met my midwife, I think her name was Tisha. Okay. Tisha. She was super nice, and she was very, very supportive. I loved her. Obviously, like anybody else, like we weren't the same human beings, so we didn't see eye to eye on every single thing, but she was always very supportive of my choices and whatnot. Unfortunately, she wasn't there for my birth. I had another woman named Heather. But I will say, regardless of, who was there for my birth, I don't regret my decision of choosing a midwife. I really, really enjoyed it. She gave me a lot of great tips for being a new-time mom. And out of all the people that were around us throughout my journey, she was, I will say, one of the only people, her and my pediatrician were probably one of the only people that spoke to us on a perspective of like, okay, these are the things that I'm supposed to tell you, and these are the boxes we're supposed to check, but you need to know, like, what you're heading into as a first-time mom, as a couple who, this wasn't planned, you're not married, you're young, there's a pretty big age gap, like, I want to make sure you feel supported. Right. And so, I feel like that's huge. A lot of women don't hear that regardless of what circumstance they go into things. And it can be very lonely for a lot of moms. And again, the fear aspect, like, okay, well, I don't feel supported and I'm fearful because everything's new. So I'm just going to listen to every single thing my OB or my midwife tells me to do and take it for face value. So I think that's a big bonus, at least for me, as far as my choice to go with a midwife goes, because there's so much more than just, like I said, checking the boxes in your appointments. Like, there's a huge mental aspect of it that you need to realize going into things. She would always, her and my pediatrician would always tell me, like, make sure you guys plan a date night and make sure you guys plan time for yourself. And I'm like, oh yeah, we'll have time for that. Like, we'll be fine. Like, just kidding.
But I think it's important.
Life is not like that. It's not that easy.
Right. But I think it's important to like humanize it. I feel like that's a lot of that's a thing that a lot of people don't get in their care with their providers, like being realistic about situations. Like, this is what's going to happen. This is what you should expect. This is what you need to incorporate. And a lot of times it is about checking boxes, because a lot of providers don't have time to sit there and have like meaningful conversations. But I think what's gotten lost in the field of like maternal child care, once it became more medicalized, I think you lose that humanizing aspect. Even just asking somebody, how are you doing? Like, and meaning that question, because people forget how hard just pregnancy and being a new mom really is. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, all of that matters. And I get, as a provider that, we do have certain boxes to check, but then remembering, like, at the end of the day, none of it is our decision. None of it is about us. So I feel like being able to sit there and be like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to recommend. This is why I'm supposed to recommend this. What do you want to do? Because I always tell people at the end of the day, you're going to go home and do whatever you want. So, like, let's be
Right.
realistic
Right.
about the conversation. I could sit up here and tell you something till I'm blue in the face. But if it's not something that you understand, nor something you want to do, nor something that aligns with your lifestyle, you're not going to do it. And that's fine. That should be
Exactly.
fine. You get what I'm saying? I don't know.
And how do you feel about things? Like, I mean, I could go on and on for all the times that, like, nobody ever stopped to ask me, like, how do you feel about, me breaking your water
Yeah.
versus, like, we have to do this? Or, like,
Yeah.
how do you feel about, this involving your child? Or how do you feel about this? Like, nobody asked you. They just make you feel like you have no choice but the choice that they're giving you.
Yeah. And that's not right. That's not right at all. I feel like I know specifically just with me, just even as a nurse, especially while I was in school to be a midwife, I feel like it was real hard for me to shut up. Like it became real hard for
Right.
me to just allow things to happen that I wasn't okay with. And a lot of times I would go in the room and be like, this is what they're going to come in here and say. This is what they're going to come in here and recommend. I said they're going to come in here and make it seem like it's something you have to do. These are your choices. And at the end of the day, you can always say no. I say, and if you don't feel comfortable, because I know everybody not like controversial. Not everybody likes controversy. Not everybody likes to, go against, somebody. And I get that, especially when you're in a compromising position like labor. So I was like,
Right.
if you don't feel comfortable, I say you can always tell them, give me 10 minutes, give me 15 minutes to discuss this, come back and we'll talk about it. And if you want to tell them you said no, I will do that for you. I don't care. Like at the end of the day, it's your birth. It's your baby.
Right.
It's your body. You don't have to do nothing you don't want to do. Like I've had people water not get broken until they're pushing the baby out and it breaks on its own because the whole time they're like, no, I don't want my water broken. And that's fine. And I feel like people shouldn't feel like they have to fight their whole labor. Like if I say no one time, it's no. It is what it is.
Especially when you're not like in the right state of mind.
Yeah.
Like, you're not thinking clearly all the way because your body's focused on the task at hand.
Yep.
Like, I had no idea that like that wasn't even an option. Like I was like, oh my gosh, like this is an emergency. I got to break the rest of my water because it's not fully broken. Like, okay, like I guess. I mean, I don't know. Nobody else. They had to make everybody leave the room. Like I was like there by myself. Like I'm like, okay, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, just having that support from the start is nice, at least from one person in your corner. Because I mean, even from the man's perspective, if the man is in the picture, the dad is in the picture, like they have no idea what's going on, even less than the woman half the time.
Right.
They're just there like shell shocked.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Yeah.
So being able to like you said, humanize it and bring everything full circle for everybody. It's so much more comforting for the mom going into things. So yeah, I would definitely recommend midwifery care for any mom, not to say that there's any OBs out there that aren't great, but that was just my experience. So
All right. So tell me about your birth experience and how it was the same or different than what your plan was for your birth.
Well, I feel like, from the beginning, not beginning, but like, the beginning of like the end of my pregnancy journey, I like I said, I didn't have my midwife present at my birth, and I didn't know that she was going to be going out of town until like the week before they were threatening induction.
Yeah.
And so I was like freaking out because I'm like, dang, like I really like her. Like now I don't know who the heck this other person's going to be. Like what if she doesn't respect my views or, my plan? Like I have no idea what to expect. So when I found out, I don't remember what the last how far along I was for that last appointment. But it was the appointment where she was like, okay, you're close to your due date or about to pass your due date. If you don't give birth by 42 weeks, we are going to induce you, and I'm leaving to go to Hawaii next weekend. And I was like, oh God, okay. So what can we do to speed this up? That's the first thing that I thought, because I didn't know any better. I just, okay, well, what's in my mind, what's the best thing that I can do for me and my baby at this point? And I trust this woman, so I guess we should speed it up, right? We should speed it up. And she was like, yeah, well, we can. Not like, and again, I love her. I really liked her. I enjoyed her. But like, again, that's where it comes into the fact, like, fear and not being fully informed of like, hey, you don't have to speed this up.
Right.
If you don't want to, we don't have to technically induce you. You can't, like, there's people that go past their due dates. It's totally normal for your first baby. No, it was like, are you sure you want to speed it up? Okay, well, we're going to do I want to say, like, sweeping of your cervix. Is that what the terminology?
Membrane sweep.
So that's what the membrane sweep. So she did that. And then I started having some contractions, like, the next late afternoon-ish, but very light. Yeah. Like, I hadn't had any Braxton Hicks or anything. Like, I felt totally normal, other than the fact that, like, I couldn't go to the bathroom and I had a huge stomach. But, like, other than that, everything felt normal. Praise the Lord. I know a lot of women experience isn't as easy, per se, as that. But I didn't have anything, and then I had those light contractions. So I did a lot of walking. And Damien was like, let's go to the gym. I was like, okay, sounds good. Let's go to the gym. And so we were at the gym, not doing anything crazy. Like, I was just doing a lot of, like, squatting and lunging and, bouncing on the Bosu ball and, doing stuff on the TRX strap, just moving my body, trying to, like, open it up more. And I was doing squats on the Smith machine, nothing, like, crazy heavy for what I had been lifting my whole pregnancy, and I felt like a leak, and I was like, uh-oh. And, like, me not knowing, I'm like, oh, this is it. Like I was like, oh, this is like my water broke, like, I'm texting you like, oh gosh, the water broke. Like, maybe it's not supposed to be this big flush of fluids or whatever. So yeah, that was unexpected, how I had to kind of, like, speed things up in a way, because I was like, I wanted her to be at my birth. And, like, that night, I want to say, I said next weekend. She was leaving that weekend. Okay. So I believe that was like a Friday, or a Thursday. And so I was like, oh my gosh, she's leaving today. Yeah. Like, she is leaving today. If I don't get to her at my birth by tonight, it's over with. Like, she's not going to make it. And she ended up not making it by like a few hours. She was going to be there. But the whole time I was like, okay, it's going to be fine. It's going to go as planned. Da, 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 da. And in the whole process of this, change of pace, I had wanted to have a doula, and I had been planning and, talking to a few different doula companies or groups. And I decided to go with NOLA Nesting because the owner of the CrossFit gym that Damien had been working at, she had a couple births natural, and she had this doula, and she highly recommended her. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go with her. I had met her the week before, but we were trying to figure out, like, how we were going to pay it, because it was like, I don't remember, $1,500 or something like that. And so, like, I know it was high. Like, I want to say it was between like $1,300 and $1,500. And so I was like, we can't afford this. Like, is there any way we could do, like, some type of payment arrangement or something? Right. So I want to say they were going to let us do it in, like, 2 payments, but it was still, like, 2 payments is, almost $900, or, $800. So I was like, they wouldn't allow the doula to help me until I paid everything. Dang. I know. So that was really, in a way, traumatic for me, because I was, like, super scared. Like, nobody in my family or Damien's family had ever done a natural birth, or, like, just a physiological birth per se. Like, no one had. So like everybody was supportive, but they were like, are you sure? You sure this is a good idea? Like, you know, I got induced, or I had a C-section. Like, just do exactly what they tell you to do. You should be fine. So like I felt kind of like alone in that aspect up until like, I want to say that evening, we finally, like, the payment went through. We were able to pay her.
That is insane.
And
that is so insane.
Yeah, well, and like Damien was going to bring her cash, I remember, and I was like laying on the bed having contractions, and they were like, no, we can't do cash, we have to do PayPal or something like that. Like, it had to be digitally. So we finally like figured it out. We were like rushing to do it, and then I was able to get her texting me. But through the whole process of it, like, I just really didn't feel supported as I believed I was going to be going into things. And I was just, you know, okay, I was timing my contractions on my phone, like she was telling me, but like everything, like we said, like everything when you're in labor, early or late stage of labor, for me was like a blur, because I was just like shell shocked of like everything that was going on. So, you know, fast forward, we ended up going to the hospital before the midwife had told me, like, she kept telling me to wait, but I was like, well, I mean, you know, at the time I was like, these are kind of, you know, getting more intense. In my mind, they were intense. They were nowhere near intense of like what active labor was. But like, I didn't know.
You don't know. Like, you don't know.
Gauge it. Yeah. And I felt like I was bothering them. Like, I kept texting them and calling them, like, what should I do? And they're like, you know, just wait, because once you're here, you can't leave. And I was like, damn, for real? Like, even if I like get there and, you know, I can't leave? No.
Because your water was broken. So technically, once you go, and I think I told you that too, like, I wouldn't go immediately, because once you go in and your water's broken and they have that on record, they would make you sign out against medical leave. Like, it'll be AMA type of situation.
Right. But you could still sign out, right?
I mean, you can against
medical advice.
Yeah, you can sign out, but then I don't know how it goes as far as like you coming back and being able to see the same provider. I don't know what the semantics is with that, but I know it's like a insurance thing where I think insurance won't pay for your stay if you sign out against medical leave, or like it's something like that. So it was just, it's very much so like, you know, if your water broke and you're not like actively contracting and you want a natural delivery, thug it out as long as you can, because if you go into a hospital, it's tricky. You're going to end up technically having to stay.
Right. So I mean, I didn't go like right away, but it was still early. Like, I want to say we were at the gym at like 3:00 in the afternoon. And I don't think I went into the hospital until maybe 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, something like that. But I still, like, you know, I should have waited long, because when I got there, everything was smooth. It was fine. Nurses were super nice. You know, she asked me right away, like, you know, like, what do you want? What's your plan? This and that. And I told her, like, you know, I don't want anything. I don't even want like an IV in my arm, you know, unless I'm like, I need it for medication. And she was super respectful. Like, that made me feel a little bit more comforted. Yeah. But I want to say, I don't remember exactly or not. I could be wrong on this, but I want to say, like, Damien wasn't allowed in that little, like, waiting room.
Oh, in triage?
Or, like, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's only separated by curtains. I remember that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, like, I was like, okay. So I'm, like, texting him, and I'm like, I don't know, like, how long am I going to be in here? Like, what's happening? And then I remember another girl got brought in right after me. And, you know, I remember her saying, like, oh, this is my second baby. And they checked her. They were like, oh, you're like 9, or not 9, I don't know, maybe like 8 centimeters dilated. And I was like, dang, she sounds great. Like, I'm only like 4 centimeters dilated. Like, how is she so calm? And so, like, I was just like, you know, obviously with the hospital, their hands are kind of tied. Like, you know, they have to respect everyone's privacy. But I'm like, dang, like, this feels so, you know, inhumane in a way of, like, the first step into the hospital. I'm like isolated. Yeah. Not really talking to anybody. I have this mom next to me who's going through the same thing that I'm going through. And I can't even like see another person's face, let alone really talk to her.
Yeah.
So that was kind of from the start, like, oh gosh, this is kind of scary. Like, I don't know what's happening. And then I don't remember how long I was in there, but they moved us to the room that we wanted. So that was nice.
Mm-hmm.
And then my doula showed up, and then when she realized, you know, we were there kind of early, that not really a lot was going to be happening for a while, she was like, okay, well, I'm going to leave and go home.
Oh.
And I was like, right? And so I was like, okay, I guess yeah, just get some rest, go to sleep. I'll be back in a few hours. So I was like, okay. And so,
okay.
So I went to sleep, but I didn't really like sleep deep because I was just so worried of like what was going to happen next. And the nurse, I want to say, I don't think the midwife came in yet, but the nurse came in and was like, you know, if this doesn't progress, we're going to have to give you Pitocin, you know, all the things, just like pressuring me to speed it up.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, you know, how long can I wait? Like, what are my options? You know, like, can I only get a little bit? Like, I don't want this at all, but like, you're making me feel like I have no options. So, you know, the options that they gave me that I thought were my only options were like, okay, well, we can like turn it really slow to where it only gives you a little bit at a time, and just to get you going. Then once you get going, you know, it'll be fine. We could turn it off. But I was like, okay, well, at least give me like 3 hours to try and see if I can move things along on my own. Yeah. And if I do, then, you know, I don't want it. Mm-hmm. So we tried. I was like lunging down the hallway, walking on sideways on the steps, like tripping all over the place because my water had like just leaked, you know, just a little bit, not like a full. And so, but nothing really, I think I only progressed like 1 centimeter. Mm-hmm. And so when she came back in, you know, they kept on checking me all the time, which I think now looking back, like that was a little excessive. Yeah. But they ended up giving me the Pitocin, and then they didn't turn it off until I said something. I was like, first of all, like, where the heck is my midwife? Like, why isn't she in here? I'm like 8 or 9 centimeters. Like, where is this lady? Like, I haven't seen her this whole time. Mm-hmm. And then why do I still have this Pitocin dripping? Like, these contractions are crazy. Yeah. Like, what is going, like, to the point where I was like, which I know it's common, but like, I'm like pooping on the floor like multiple times because my nervous system is like, feels like I just drank 3 shots of espresso. Like, literally, that's why I felt like my adrenaline was so high from all the stuff that were coming on. But, you know, that wasn't according, you know, didn't really go as planned. But luckily I was able to move around. I convinced them to let me go into the tub a little bit earlier than they were supposed to. Mm-hmm. And even with that, like, they kept just, like, doing cervical checks. And then they were like, oh, well, we can't do any cervical checks while you're in the water. So we need you to get out of the water to check your, you know, see how far you've dilated. Oh my God. So that was just super uncomfortable. And then, like, when I was pooping on the floor was after the fact, like, the last time she was like, okay, you got to get out so we can check you. And I'm like, listen, lady, if I get out of this tub one more time with these intense contractions, like, I'm not going back in because it's so painful. Yeah. Like, I couldn't, like, and it, again, like, it wasn't, you know, I've heard stories of, like, the Pitocin contractions are way more intense than natural ones, but, like, it wasn't like I was like, okay, I'm going to, like, you know, I always see people on Instagram, like, they're on all fours. Like, that looks like a comfortable position. That was so painful. Like, everything was, like, in the front and in my left hip, just, like, on fire. Yeah. And so I got out, and they had me trying to give birth standing up, hanging on to, like, Damien's neck. Yeah. And that's when I was, like, pooping on the floor because I was like, this is not, like, my body does not feel safe. Yeah. And so finally they made me go to the bed, which I was, like, on my side, and the doula was trying to do, like, the what's the move called when they're, like, trying to spinning babies?
Oh, yeah. They have spinning babies.
Yeah, so, like, because I guess she was, like, all the way over to my left side, so I was having really bad contractions all down my left leg and side. Mm-hmm. And that wasn't working. And then finally, you know, after a lot of, like, trying to push on my back, and I was, like, almost, like, kicking the nurses because, like, I was just, like, I guess I was strong for them to, like, hold my feet. But Damien was like, okay, let me try this. like, let me just like hold her hands and you guys hold her feet, because some lady that had worked out and went to his class at the gym had like 7 kids natural, and she was like, listen, if I give you any advice, this is my secret, like, you know, use a towel or like a TRX strap and almost do like you're doing a tug of war movement.
Yes, I love tug of war.
Right. And so I was like, okay, let's do this. So as soon as he did that, after like hours and hours and hours of pushing, like she came out in like 3 pushes.
Oh my God. Shout out to Damien.
Literally. Like, and I think because like, you know, giving birth on your back isn't like a natural position for the baby to come out, because it like closes off your hips because you're like in a tucked tail position. But I think that like pulling me forward, you know, kind of like anteriorly rotated my hips to where it opened things up to where, okay, now I can get her out, because it was just like, I kept screaming at the doctor, like, what? She was like, okay, just keep going. I'm like, keep going. Like, am I making any progress? Can I see anything? Do you guys see anything? Like, what's happening? Where is she? And like, I felt like nobody was telling me anything. I'm like, we have like 7 people in this room that like, for one, I didn't approve of being in here. And none of you guys can give me an answer. Where is this baby? What's going on? So yeah, I mean, all that to say, a lot didn't go as planned, but you know, in a lot of ways, they were respectful of my choices. You know, I wanted delayed cord clamping. I declined the Hep B and the vitamin K for my daughter. And I didn't want them to give her a bath right away, which they didn't ask about that, which was nice. But like, I wanted to keep the Vernix on her, you know, at least until we got home or like for the next day or so. And I wanted her to be with me right after birth, you know, all the time. I didn't want them to just like take her away. So they were respectful of that. They allowed me to get in the water early. That was really nice. They put some different type of like monitor around my belly because I had the Pitocin that was like able to be in the water. Which just still like wasn't super comfortable because I had all these cords, but like, I guess it was better than, you know, having to get stuck in the bed if I had Pitocin. And so, yeah, that was nice that, you know, that all went as planned. But, you know, things never go 100% as planned, you know, with anything. So I'm grateful that, you know, I was able to advocate for myself in the bigger things that I wanted. And now looking back, you know, we always will make different choices as we learn. Like, now looking back for my next child, like, I don't think I'll ever let them put Pitocin in me unless it's like some type of an emergency. But like, you know, I can go into it more informed than I did the first go around. When you know better, you do better.
Exactly. So. I agree. You did good. I feel like you did really good advocating for yourself and knowing what you wanted ahead of time. And good on you for having a good enough partner that could step in, because I feel like especially in that moment, like you pushing, you're probably tired, you need someone to be able to step up and intervene when they need to intervene, and most partners don't feel comfortable or anything to say anything, you know what I'm saying? So
definitely
I was
great. Shocked that he did, because like for a lot of the time, poor guy, like his face was just like in shock. Like he was like, he felt so bad for me because I was just like crying and crying. Cause I'm like, you know, like just processing everything. But at the same time, like I was disappointed in myself because like things didn't go as planned. And like, I was disappointed because things weren't progressing and I couldn't understand. And like, I didn't feel like I was getting any answers from anybody. And there was just so much that I just didn't understand. I didn't feel like anybody was helping me. And he was just like, looked like a deer in a headlights, just like, okay, well, how can I help? What do you need? I feel like that. He was just so shocked. So I'm like, okay, Jewel, like, I need your help over here. Like, come on, he needs your help.
Right.
So, but yeah, I was definitely proud of him for stepping up when, you know, push came to shove and like he saw like nothing was changing. Like, I don't know how things would have gone if he didn't do that. So I'm very grateful for him that he did.
Good. I'm glad. So you mentioned delayed cord clamping. What went into, because I know you did you did some things with your placenta. You did delayed cord clamping. How did you, was it just that you researched stuff about, I feel like a lot of people don't come in discussing that. Like, I know about delayed cord clamping because obviously I work in the field. But like, what made you go that route? Like leaving the vernix on her, like stuff like that.
I mean, I just, everybody says like I did my research, but like I researched as much as I could possibly think of like, okay, what are the things that they're doing that are interventions that they haven't always done, and why do they do them, and what's the importance of them, and are they really needed? So, that was my biggest thing. Like, I will say, like, a lot of women, they'll read a lot of like parenting books and like, what to expect when you're expecting books when you're pregnant. Like me, I didn't, but I spent a majority of my time like researching the things that I knew I was going to get pushback on, and things that I knew from the jump, that I had questions about, whether it was good or bad questions. Like, I just wanted to know more. And so I just started making a list. Okay, this is what I want. This is what I don't want. This is why, this is what I've read of why it's not necessary, and why it's beneficial for my baby, and, how I can best, advocate for her and for myself during pregnancy. And, I could just cross my fingers and hope that I did the best that I could, with the little knowledge that I knew at the time, being a brand new mom that wasn't, planning to get pregnant when I did. But delayed cord clamping, I had heard that it provided, stem cells, provided oxygen and immune cells to the baby, that it helped with, their hormone levels, their, preventing iron deficiency. And I want to say I read something that said about like 30% of babies' blood volume, the placenta and the cord blood contain 30% of the blood volume. And so it improves their cardiac function, their immune health. So all these beneficial things. So I'm like, why not? My midwife asked me what my choice was on it. And, I went and I just read up on it. And I was like, oh, well, there's a lot of good benefits. Why not do it?
Yeah.
And then with my placenta, kind of hand in hand with that, when I was doing the research about the delayed cord clamping, a lot of stuff was coming up about the placenta. And so I was like, this is something that I think that I want to do. I saw a lot of doula services offered it. But I actually didn't even have a place in mind that I was going to do it. I just knew that I wanted to do it like at the last minute. So my doula recommended, I want to say her company is called Full Moon Rising. So she came to my house, which was really nice. And she just did it all in my house. She did the placenta encapsulation, and then made like a salve, and then made me like a cool little like print that I put in my nursery with the placenta. And so, that was kind of like last minute, but it was always something like on my radar that I was more inclined to want to do than not want to do. And I'm glad that I did it. I feel like it definitely helped with my energy levels after giving birth and my milk production.
You mean the encapsulation?
Yes, the encapsulation. But I mean, I've heard mixed opinions on it. I don't think one is 100% wrong. I don't think one is 100% right. Like, I think everybody has different experiences with things based on their birth, their mineral levels going into things, their nutritional levels going into things. So everybody has a different response to things. But for me, I feel like it benefited me positively after birth. So I'm glad that I went with that choice.
Good. All right. So let's talk about the like after delivery, they recommend 3 things for the baby: the vitamin K shot, which helps the baby's blood clot; the hepatitis B vaccine, which is a series of vaccines; and then the erythromycin antibiotic eye ointment to prevent any eye infections on their way out. What were did you have a conversation with your provider about that ahead of time, and what made you decide whether or not you were gonna go through with these medications or vaccines?
I, I don't think so. Now that I think like she kind of like already had an idea of like what my answer was going to be based upon like how my whole pregnancy went. Like,
Okay.
you know, every time when she recommended like, oh, do you want the prescription prenatals? I was like, no, I'm good. Like, I'm going to find, you know, a natural option, or can I get it from Whole Foods?
Mm-hmm.
Not like the store like actual Whole Foods.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, throughout the whole time, like even with my prenatals, like not to say that there aren't great prenatals out there, it just like didn't work for me. It made my constipation worse.
Yeah.
Even though I had a food-based prenatal.
Mm-hmm.
So I just, you know, did it all through diet. So I think just knowing me and like seeing how we went about things, she didn't even ask me. Like, she did ask me about the delayed cord clamping.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think she asked me about like any of the vaccines or the eye ointment.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I think about it, the only time I was asked about it was in triage, when she was asking me like my preferences for everything,
Mm-hmm.
And if I had a birth plan, etc. But I don't remember. Maybe they asked me about the eye ointment,
Mm-hmm.
but it was never brought up. If she did, it was never brought up after that. Like,
Okay.
It was never like, are you sure this is what you want to do?
Mm-hmm.
Like, no. And to me, for that one, that was like a no-brainer, because I was like, you know, like I think antibiotics are already overused. I don't have a sexually transmitted disease, so
Mm-hmm.
I don't see why rubbing an antibiotic on the eyes of a brand new healthy baby is necessary, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So that was just like, okay, automatically I'm good on that. So yeah, but I mean, thankfully they weren't really like pushy about that. Vitamin K, she asked me about that along with the Hep B when I first came in, but then after that, nobody asked me. My answer at the time actually was like, I'm not sure on that one. I'm thinking that I may give it to her, but I'm not 100% sure yet. So I'm still deciding.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll let you guys know, but then nobody ever asked me after that.
Okay.
So looking back now, I'm like glad they didn't, because at the time I thought it was like, oh, it's just a vitamin. And then like later on when I was doing research about other vaccines, I was like, oh, this is a lot more than what I was expecting. So yeah, that was a conversation that she was just, okay, well, yeah, let us know. And so I was like, okay. And then Hep B, I was like, I definitely don't want that. You know, that's a sexually transmitted disease. You know, my daughter isn't going to be injecting drugs in her body, and she's not going to be participating in sexual activity anytime soon. So, you know, that's not really something that I feel like she needs to have. And nobody really pressured me on that, except for the NICU doctor.
Yeah.
Who, after I gave birth, for whatever reason, they said she had like a high temperature. But I feel like it was just because like I had her like on me so close to me for so long, like wrapped up into all the blankets, because I like didn't want anything to happen to her. So they said she had a little bit of a high temperature, so they put her in the NICU, and then the NICU doctor comes to, you know, visit you and check on you after she's back in your care. And so when she came in, she was like automatically kind of like opposed to my decision, not supportive of me at all, and was like, you know, you're going to kill your baby. Like, you know, this is a very careless decision. Like, you know, I'm a doctor from LSU, and like dishing out her credentials. Like, and I was like, listen, lady, like, this is my child. At the end of the day, this is my decision. This is what I'm comfortable with. You know, unless you can tell me that there's an actual serious health threat of her not getting this with actual factual reasoning, it's absolutely ridiculous to give this to a healthy baby. Like, and not to offend anybody or knock any mom that like made that choice. That's your choice. But at the end of the day, like, we know as mothers in our instincts, you know, what is right and what is not right for our child. And for somebody to tell you that you're going to kill your child by not injecting them with something that's for an STD is ridiculous, in my opinion, and very unprofessional. You know, and it's just,
I think that all goes back to just realizing that at the end of the day, your job as a medical provider is to provide information and provide what the research says, what this says, give you options, give you alternatives, and at the end of the day, giving you what they called the chance to make an informed decision. Not you telling, not, you know, somebody coming and telling you need to do X, Y, and Z and you just do it. Because
and that's like a red flag off the bat.
Yeah.
Like, she didn't come in there like, okay, like, I know this is new. Like, are you sure about this decision? Just in case, like, let me give you the insert. Like, not once has any doctor, even after my daughter was born, ever said, let me provide you with the ingredients. Let me provide you with the insert that tells you the risks, the adverse reactions, the warnings. Never.
Alternatives, nothing.
Exactly. Any alternative. I mean, I was surprised she didn't come in there and start, like, giving me brands of which vitamin K drops that I should give my kid if I'm not going to inject it in her. You know, like, it just, I'm like, do you work for the company or do you work for me? Like, why do I have health insurance at this point? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was just really frustrating because it's just, if moms only, you know, knew, like, you know, the interests that these companies have, and it's not in the best interest of the health of our children. It's in the interest of, like, based upon the funding that they're receiving, they would make different choices for their kids.
Agreed.
And it's frustrating. Like, you know, just reading the insert of the Hep B vaccine, and it tells you, like, you look it up on the CDC website, it'll tell you if you open up the insert. It says that they're not sure how long it'll be effective. They can't make statements regarding the effectiveness, and it may not protect all individuals. And then it goes on later to say a recommendation by the ACIP that they recommend a booster, though. So I'm like, okay, well, let me look up to see who the ACIP is. The ACIP is a committee of only 15 people that they're not doctors. And one of them is a lawyer. Most of them are professors, but one of them is a lawyer who, she's on the committee because her daughter died of pertussis. And she's trying to raise money for, you know, promoting the pertussis vaccine. But what a lot of people don't realize is all the cases of the people who have died from pertussis, children that have had severe cases of pertussis that have been hospitalized or died, have all been vaccinated. So where does her interest lie? If she works as a professor for, you know, a university that's funded by these companies or funded by the FDA, does it lie in her funding, or does it lie in our children's best interests? So, I mean, that's something that, like, moms have to look at and question that aren't going to be told by the doctor firsthand. I mean, it even, like, there's even, like, on any vaccine insert, it says, like, a post-marketing section. And it'll basically, post-marketing is, like, you know, what moms are saying, what they're reporting. It says, a quote, it's like, because their reactions are reported voluntarily, it's not reliable. And it's not reliable to establish their frequency or establish a causal relationship. So basically, because moms are volunteering to tell their story about what happened to their kid, it's not really reliable. What's reliable is the studies that we've done that have been funded by the companies that make these. So, I mean, you know, it's just, it's frustrating because it's like mothers' voices are silenced in so many avenues. Especially when it comes at the cost of their child, and nobody's liable for it. Except for the mom who has to take care of her child.
Completely agree with you. Girl. Um, so do you have any other topic you want to touch on before we close? Because this has been great, but I don't want to take all your time. I know we've been talking for a minute.
Um, well, I would say, going off of what we were just talking about, like, I implore every mom to do their research. There's tons of resources out there if you just do a little bit of digging.
Yeah.
Whatever your decision may be, it's not, to push one side or the other, but like, I'm a big advocate in doing your research in anything that you do, whether it's, workout or nutrition or anything. But, when you have a child, your priorities change and you're responsible for another life. Nobody else is but you. So, go and look, find resources out there, get support. One of my, two of my favorite resources that I always share with my new mom friends are, there's a guide that compiles everything, highlights everything to where you don't have to go and read, all these pages of different research studies.
Yeah.
And get overwhelmed with all the information. But her name's Ashley Everly. She created a vaccine guide that goes through every single one, the risks, and it's from an unbiased perspective. She goes through and highlights all like the pertinent information in each study and, history behind everything, ingredients, everything, something that your doctor should be giving you when you go into a visit. But that's by Ashley Everly, and it's a free PDF guide that she has on her website or through Instagram. You can find her.
Okay.
And then Candace Owens actually did a really good, like each segment is an hour long, and every single one that's free, but that's through the Parler app. So you just download the Parler app, go to her page, and she has a video.
What's the app?
Or each one.
What's the app? I didn't hear what you said.
It's called Parler.
Parler. Okay.
And that one, I mean, like, I say that, people take it with a grain of salt because, she's mostly known for her political views on things. But, like, regardless of your political stance, just go and listen to it because it has nothing to do with politics or anything. She's comes from an unbiased perspective on things. Like, her first baby, she was induced. Her second baby, she had naturally. But, she talks about each vaccine, even the one they offer during pregnancy for women, and, goes through the history studies and breaks it down for you, to the T, and reads straight from FDA, CDC website, all reputable sources. So that's a very useful tool, in my opinion, for new mothers embarking on a new journey when everything is new and overwhelming.
Thank you. I'm gonna make sure I put that on the episode, I think it's called show notes. You add at the bottom. I'll put that information at the bottom too. That way people could access it. But you make a really good point just about research. I tell people that all the time. Like, your provider is not the end all be all. We don't know every single thing. Everybody has their own biases, whether or not they try to take it to work. They have some people that firmly believe in medicine and will take every medication and vaccine there is out there. They have other people that are on the completely opposite end of the spectrum. And I think it's completely okay. Everybody's different. And it's okay that everybody's different. But if you're going to be a provider, you have to, make room to understand every side. You don't have to agree. That's what I tell people all the time. We don't have to agree on how we would take care of our kids or take care of ourselves. But as a provider, your job is to provide information and provide care. So if somebody says they don't want X, Y, and Z, then they don't want it. Your job ain't to force nobody to do what you think they should do. So,
and listen to the moms
yes,
when they don't want it.
Yes.
Listen to the mom when they say, something's going on with my child.
Yes.
Don't gaslight the moms and don't gaslight the women. Even, we saw a lot of it during COVID when women were like, oh, I'm having a miscarriage or, I can't get pregnant. and whatnot, like, they said that it wasn't studied on pregnant women because it wasn't a priority.
Right.
Because they were worried about hesitancy, not because it wasn't studied for a legitimate reason. You know what I mean? Like, so even in, like you were saying, in the hospital, when you're not having people advocate for you, like, mothers are the last people that they're willing to listen to in a lot of aspects. And it's so backwards because like, those are the people who need it the most. In breastfeeding and anything. Like, I'm so thankful my breastfeeding journey was, a breeze compared to a lot of other women. I didn't have any, like, clogged ducts or anything like that, or production issues, but I know a lot of women did and do. And if I did, I don't know what I would have done, because I didn't have any postpartum support from my doula or from a lactation consultant. Everything that I saw, to my knowledge, cost money or wasn't covered by my insurance. So I didn't have any help. Like, I just breastfed on demand, and I was fortunate enough to be home to breastfeed her on demand. But, like, I didn't even know, like, what's it called? The valves, the thing that goes on your breast when you're pumping.
Oh, like the actual things that you're, like, like the actual pump?
No, like, like the actual part, the pump part that goes, on your breast.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Like, my sister had sent me her pump because, like, I couldn't get one through my insurance. My sister sent me hers. I had no idea, like, there were different sizes.
Correct,
like,
yeah.
Girl, she has, like, a double D. No wonder I couldn't pump anything. I'm like, my breast pump doesn't work. Like, like, I didn't know.
Right.
Like, and those are these things that, like, they're not providing.
That's why that support is so important.
They're like, just get formula. You're like, it's fine. Just do the easier thing. Just do formula. Like, let her be. She's on you too much, or she's not on a schedule, or this, like, everybody has an opinion, but it's like, no one's there to openly provide you with the information of why there is this well-known one opinion that should just be accepted. And you should just sit down and be quiet. Otherwise, like, you're crazy.
Yeah. And it's not right.
It's not at all. And that's one thing I will say, like, I wish that more, and I know some offer it, but I wish that more doulas or even, like, midwives would, like, provide more postpartum care and postpartum visits that, like, are included. Like, I was trying to find my doula's name and, like, her company or whatever the other day. Like, I'm like, dang, I don't remember. So I found it, and then I was like, wait, they offer postpartum doulas that you pay for separately. Like,
it's starting to become a thing. Yeah, it should be all together. It should all be included. But I think postpartum is becoming more of a conversation. But I think it was an afterthought. Like, I feel like the anticipation is always around the delivery, but nobody talks about what like you go to countless visits while you're pregnant, countless, and you're only required to have 1 6-week visit postpartum.
And they call you if you don't show up to the visits. They're like, when you want to reschedule? Are you going to be
right?
Like, what about postpartum? Like, nobody called. I didn't even go to my final visit. Like, I was just like, oh, this is the time. Like, I don't remember, what is the time frame, like, after, before you can be, like, working out or sexually active after you give birth.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, I know this is the time, so, like, I'm fine. But, like, I didn't go back. Like, I was like, what do I need to go back for? I'm fine. Nobody's calling me to check up on me.
Yeah. There should be a visit, like, a week in, 3 weeks in, 2 weeks in, 4 weeks. Like, those are when you're having the most problems and you're adjusting and everything. I mean, your whole world has changed. Your hormones are changing. Your baby not sleeping. You not sleeping. Like, it's a huge change, and it's so neglected. It's so neglected. But
most definitely. I mean, it just, and you see a lot of women with postpartum depression.
Yeah.
They don't, like, for me, I'm like, I don't know. Okay, now I have a baby. Like, none of my friends have a baby. Like, who am I going to, like, hang out with? What am I going to do?
Yeah.
Like, now that I have the baby with me all the time. Like, I went to some, mommy and me yoga classes, that they had a few of them. And then I want to say, I don't know, when I was just born in 2018, I was going to say COVID, but I don't know, they shut it down because I think they were moving locations of like there's like a breastfeeding center or something like that downtown.
Yeah.
So they moved locations from like down there where they were to another one, so they stopped the classes. But I mean, other than that, I'm like, okay, how am I going to find like other mom friends? Like, how am I going to find people that support me, that, know that what I'm going through? None of that. Like, you don't get any of that from your doula. I mean, maybe they do now, but I didn't.
Yeah.
Even like, I remember my doula, after the fact, I was telling you, like, after I gave birth and she went home, like, I'm texting her, like, this is what these doctors are telling me, like, what they're saying to me, like, what should I do? I don't know. I'm feeling this type of way, And, like, I didn't even get a text back. Nothing.
That's so messed up. Like, that's such a disservice.
So,
like, that's such a disservice. That's not okay. That's not okay.
It's just sad because I'm like, I don't know how many other moms go, feel like this and go through this, and they're going through, health issues themselves following birth, or they have to they had to get an episiotomy, or they are having to get, their abs sewn back together, or whatever. Like, thankfully I didn't tear anything, so I didn't have any of that. But like, what about the women that are going through all of that and their baby's not sleeping?
Yeah.
And they don't have support, and they don't know, how they should be feeding their body and nurturing their body, or what they should be doing. They're just getting told all these things. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely think postpartum is one of the most, if not the most important part about pregnancy.
Agreed. Completely agree. Yeah, I don't know. We have a lot of work to do. A lot of work to do. But I think that there are a lot of people who are beginning to think the way you do and are doing more research for themselves. And I mean, and it sucks that, you go to certain professionals or providers and expect, not to have to do so much research. But I tell people, at the end of the day, it's your body and your baby, and you need to be the expert.
Right.
I'm sorry. Like, your provider can only do so much until you have to step in and make a decision for yourself. And, you coming in and saying, like, I did research on X, Y, and Z, you might teach your provider something that she can go on and teach something to the next person, So I just feel like it's something where people have to realize, like, it's not one of those hierarchical relationships. We're all learning from each other. And at the end of the day, like, the mom, the baby, the family, that's the priority. Like, the well-being and, that's the priority. So,
right. And fostering that relationship to where you can have that open dialogue to where you don't feel like, okay, if I don't agree with 100% of what they're saying, they're going to shut me down or kick me out of their practice.
And that's not okay.
And that's what it's become. But like you said, when you become pregnant, you become a mom, like, you learn real quickly, it's you, your family and your child in your corner. And it's your responsibility more than anybody else's as a mother to not only educate yourself and for your child, but to be able to teach your child one day so they can advocate for themselves.
Yeah.
Whatever decision that may be for them, but at least they have the tools.
Yep.
Because, I mean, I remember my mom didn't know any better. Like, I remember when I was growing up, my mom was just like, anything the doctor said, like, yeah, give her everything. Do everything. Yeah, that's fine. Should she take this antibiotic? Sure. That's fine. The doctor said that. And then, later in life, learning, okay, now she has oral cancer. And she has to be able to make a decision and now start questioning. Maybe I should get a second opinion. Maybe I should start questioning these things, and I don't want it, all that to say things always happen for a reason, but I don't want to be in that position. I don't want my daughter definitely to be in a position to where it's an emergency. And that's when she has to start doing the research and making, informed decisions for herself, advocating for herself, when everything is on the line.
Yeah.
And so, it's sad that it has to be that way, but at the same time, it does need to be that way because, we got to put our big girl pants on and, grow up a little bit when we go through that phase of life of going from a single or, a married woman or whatever to a mother. Yeah. It's not about you anymore. It's about the child.
Yep. Well, I just want you to know I am very proud of you.
Thank you.
You're doing great.
Thank you.
And thank you for sharing your story and information because, I don't think a lot of people are as well versed in like holistic care and health and wellness as you are. And that's why I really reached out to you because I feel like it's very valuable to get that perspective. So thank you. I appreciate you.
Oh, definitely. There was something, I feel like there was something else. I wrote some notes because I was like, I don't want to forget. So, going back quickly to like postpartum care.
Yeah.
Some tips that I would recommend, obviously like eating enough calories to support your body.
Yeah.
But, like sun exposure is something so simple for you and baby. Like I feel like a lot of times we're told like to stay inside, don't take the baby outside for like the first 3 months because like something's going to happen to him. But like just getting sun exposure early in the day is so beneficial for you as you're healing and for your baby, for their immune system, for vitamin D production, for lowering stress in the body. And that's a lot of people I feel like quickly overlook something as simple as that, but like that fueling your body with enough calories. I know I saw on your story the other day, people talking about like hair loss. And a lot of times that's linked to like a mineral deficiency because they're either not eating enough or not hydrating enough. But a lot of people think like, oh, I got to drink water. I got to drink, Gatorade and whatnot. But like something as simple as like adding in minerals to your water or like there's something called an adrenal cocktail that's coconut water, orange juice, and like a pinch of salt that is like the perfect concoction of balancing your sodium and potassium levels that will not only help fight fatigue, but also help meet those mineral needs that your body needs during breastfeeding and postpartum, which will help prevent hair loss on the front end. And like, eating whole real foods, like getting enough protein from animal products, eating grass-fed butter, getting grass-fed cheese. Like I remember I didn't really eat a lot of dairy when I was pregnant, but my biggest craving, this was way back when like Starbucks used to carry Kerrygold butter, but like for some reason or another, I would go like every other day and go get a bagel with like extra butter, and I would always crave that. And now looking back, I'm like, holy crap, like no wonder, that makes so much sense. Or I crave tons of avocados because of like the good fats that you need when you're growing your baby and you're growing their brain. So yeah, I would recommend those things, among doing your research, but also doing those things to support your body, the, hip core stability. If you don't know about it, find a good like pelvic floor specialist, or there's a girl called Hannah Bauer on Instagram who I followed a lot of her pelvic floor exercises and workouts throughout my pregnancy, and she's a great resource of just educating women on like about their bodies and what to do moving forward after a baby. And so I would recommend her for sure. And just that type of training. I didn't do it during pregnancy because I just didn't know enough, but I would recommend like chiropractic care. I've heard a lot of great things.
My friend did it like almost every week, and it was amazing.
Right.
Amazing.
I wish I would have done it. Now I had a lot of like hip pain and foot pain when I was pregnant, so I feel like it would have helped me. And then like, collagen is great for all the things like skin, everything's stretching, moving. So just to repair for that, pairing that with orange juice because vitamin C helps the absorption of that. The book that I recommended, the first 40 days, that's a great one.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't get to talk about the glucose testing, but I mean, that goes along with just like read up on things. You know, you have a choice.
Yeah.
And the ingredients in that are absolutely horrible, like vegetable oil and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And stuff that you don't need in your body that you can get from real food, or some women don't even opt to do it at all. But, you know, I know every case is different. So just reading up on that. Shilajit is a thing that I had recommended for like the hair loss.
Yeah.
Because that's just like a concentrated mineral. It has like 85 different trace minerals, and it's an easy like one shot every morning or in your juice or in your tea. That's really beneficial. And yeah, I don't know. Always learning. I don't know it all, but as I learn, you know, I try and build and share what I know, because I wish I would have known more at the time, you know, whether I agree with it or not. Like, even just somebody just sharing more than just like a horror story of what happened to them, I think can benefit a mom tremendously, because they don't always get it.
Agreed. I feel like you share so much valuable information. Like, people really, I mean, a lot of this stuff I don't even know about, you know, like I haven't heard about. And I feel like I tell people that all the time, like, I don't know everything. One, I also don't have kids, so I know my experience is going to be limited regardless, but I'm open. I'm so open to learning about everything, because, you know, it's not a one size fit all situation. Like, it's just not. So.
Right. No, nothing is. And I think that's when more and more people are quickly coming to an understanding of, that's opening up their minds about a lot of things that they've been closed off about for a long time. Because I mean, I remember when I was telling my brother that I was wanting to have a water birth, he's like, "Are you insane?" Like, I remember so-and-so had a home birth in the water, and then they had to, like, you know, put the baby on a helicopter to the emergency room, like, you're crazy. And, like, you know, anything, you know, he just had a different viewpoint on a lot of things. Right. So he's like, "You're crazy. Why are you doing that?" And, like, now, you know, years later down the road, he's like, "Wow, like, you know, that does make more sense." Or, you know, we don't agree on everything, but, like, a lot of things he's, like, come to an understanding of, like, well, you know, maybe I do have a choice, or maybe that isn't the best thing, or whatnot. So, you know, I just always encourage people to really ask questions and go with your gut instinct. Like, I didn't know half of the things that I knew now. When I had my daughter, I still, you know, was like I said, even going into triage, I was on the fence about a lot of things. And I was like, well, I'll decide later, or maybe I'll, you know, wait or whatnot. But, like, something just deep inside me just, like, didn't sit well with a lot of things.
And listen to your gut. You gotta listen to to yourself.
I vividly remember one time a family member calling Damien, was like, "You didn't do what?" "Oh my God, are you crazy?" And I was like, I just remember this, like, mama bear, like, spirit coming out of me, like, "No, tell them to back off. Like, this is what I want to do. I'm not 100% sure why I want to do it, but I don't feel good about it, and I'm not doing it."
Yeah.
And, like, looking back now, I'm, like, so thankful that I did. But, like, even if I didn't know everything, my body knew, and my gut knew. Like, you're still connected to that child after so many months of carrying them in your body. Like, you know, God created us in a very unique way, with a very unique understanding of things, especially as women, to know our bodies and to be aware, and, you know, to know what's best for our child. And when things don't sit well with us, and, you know, Spirit's telling us, like, you know, don't do this, like, you have to tap into that, and you have to listen to that, because, you know, we were born a certain way, with a certain state of mind, a state of thinking, to protect our child.
Yep. Well, all right, sweetheart. Thank you again. I appreciate
Thank you so much. I'm so glad we got to talk.
No, really, seriously, thank you, though.
For your podcast.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm trying to get it there, girl, and I'm trying to make sure I get, you know, every perspective. I don't want, you know, to just touch on like midwifery care. Like I have an OBGYN that I want to discuss things with.
Definitely.
Yeah, I just want to get all the experiences, but I really do appreciate you taking out the time and talking to me.
Oh, definitely. Oh, okay. One more thing. Last thing. I'm not going to just real snippet.
Okay.
Make a note.
Okay.
For the mom. Sorry, you guys. I keep going back and forth, but because I know you talk to, primarily your audience is a lot of women of color or, minorities.
Mm-hmm.
So this was one thing that, like, me and Damien weren't always on the same page about a lot of things going into pregnancy and being new parents, making decisions and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But this was one thing that really opened his eyes was if you do research on what's called the Tuskegee experiment.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm gonna just leave it right there and let you guys look that up. I'm gonna leave it right there.
Seriously.
Because history tends to repeat itself. So
and question
I love all
everything.
you mamas out there listening. And I love your kids, even though I don't know them, or your future kids. So I'm always here to share with what I know and what I'm passionate about. And I love fitness, and I love health and nutrition. I feel like it's all encompassing and all works together. So on anything that you do, always, research it, do what feels best for your body, whether it's moving or foods. Like I was vegan for 3 years and now I'm totally opposite end of the spectrum. It's okay to be wrong about things. It's okay to change your mind and to ask questions because that's how you grow and that's how you learn. So I'll leave it at that.
All right, boo. Thank you. Let me stop it.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too. I just want to say thank you to Bridget. She is so amazing and has so much valuable information, y'all, for real. I hope y'all really enjoyed this episode. I hope you'll tune in next week to find out who we have next. Make sure you message me on Instagram _phases of the womb, or you can email me phasesofwomb@gmail.com. Hope y'all have a wonderful week. Talk to y'all soon. Bye.